Debbie with Kip's Corner. Welcome back, and if you're new, welcome. Thanks for joining me. In today's video, I'm going to make tabs for my 4 journals, the 4 journals that are part of the Celebrating Our Differences series. And that's a series where I'm creating 4 journals simultaneously. Silly me. And each one, though, has some very similar pieces and papers and colors and things like that. Each one is very uniquely different. And so, just in case you haven't, if this is the first video you've seen in that series, there are, I think, 4, maybe 5, I've lost count, videos in this series where I've just been making different pieces, the covers, and then obviously different pieces on the inside. This is Butterfly. This is Mr. Grunge. This is Botanical. And then in the last video, I showed you the completed cover for Wild Child. So this is Wild Child. And that's actually the first set of tabs I'm going to work on are for Wild Child. I wasn't sure if this was going to work. And so I just played earlier in the week with taking dried flowers and adding it to the tab and then covering that with glossy accents. And it looks like, I think it's gonna work. This particular journal has 3 signatures in it, but I'm going to make 4 tabs. So I will have an extra one that I can dismiss. But I really like the way this one turned out. If you see if I can get it here, let's see if I can do it that way. So you can see the shine and the gloss and the dried flower on there. And then on the back side, so the first step I took was to use glazing medium over the whole thing, and that's all there is on the back. I want to put another coat of glazing medium on the back of this, but yeah, I thought they kind of turned out cute. And it goes well with, what is that? It goes well with this journal. So I've got 2 more that I'm going to make, and I'll show you what I did and how I made them. So I started with Whale Tail Punch, and I punched these out of one of the papers from the kit I'm using that there was an extra, that I'm not using in the journal. And so I have this page, and I was just able to cut, whatever spots I thought would work with my punch. So that's where I started. Excuse me. Next up, I've pulled some dried flowers, and these are really delicate, and I don't usually do very well with really, really delicate things. It's got a string on it. But I'll put dried flowers. I think this is flipped over. Yeah. Dried flowers on top. Just glue the dried flowers on, and then I will coat just that tab, or I'll coat the whole thing with glazing medium. And my idea was that would just help sort of seal in the flower, and then I'll coat the whole thing, or just the half tab, with glossy accents. So let me go ahead and get to it. I just glued them down with art glitter glue. And so I think, let's do this one first. I should probably come down a little bit closer for you so you can see what I'm doing. Sorry if that makes you dizzy. First thing, I just need to decide how I want this on here. So I'm just going to turn this around a little bit. I think I want to do something like that. And then I can trim a little bit of this off and go about like that. Yeah, I like that. That's cute. And that gets that center up away from the edge. Okay, let's glue that on. So I'm going to set that aside. Okay, this one I've got 2 little flowers here. I'm going to put one down in one corner and one in the other. Same thing, art glitter glue on the back. Okay, so I'm going to let both of those dry, and I will come back to them. When I first did this, I thought just the glazing medium might be enough, the effect that I was looking for, and it really wasn't. I wanted it to have a little bit more punch, a little bit more wild childness. And so that's when I tried the glossy accents and it seemed to work. But I'm gonna go ahead, I am gonna continue with that process and just go ahead and do the glazing medium first again on this one, on both of these. That way they're all done the same way. So I'm not convinced that this is a necessary step, but like I said, that way they're all done the same way. So we will let those sit and dry while we move on to the next set. Let me scoot those off to the side. Okay, the next set is actually going to require me to do some sewing, so we'll have to wait on that one. That requires sewing too. Let's do these. On this set, these are going to be for butterfly. So I've got that blue pulled in there. This is strips ripped from a vintage flour sack. And so it's got this really pretty, the writing on the flour sack was in blue. See, that's the word heavy. There's an H-E-A-V-Y, heavy whatever. So this journal is going to have 5 signatures in it. And I've got 5 pieces here. Now, true to butterfly and this particular journal, I want to keep this one very, very simple. I don't want to do a lot to this one. Butterfly has that soft vintage watercolor kind of vibe to it. And so I want to keep with that softness, that soft, subtle. All I want to do is sew let's even go through here. All I want to do is sew the button on this with a little bit of that old lace that I talked about before. Yeah, it will. All right. So I've just taken my strips. These are, I don't know, 2.5 inches maybe? I don't think they're 3 inches, but I think they're a little bit bigger than 2 1/4. So we'll call them about 2.5 inches and just a little wider than 1 inch. And I folded them in half. You can, of course, you can make these any size that you wanted to. This is a little piece of the lace that is on the front of Butterfly. So I thought that would be a nice, connect it back and tie it into the inside of the journal. And I've just found some, whoops, and I'm losing them. Dropping them, there it goes. I just found some out of my vintage button stash, some baby buttons, and these have strings falling off. And I've just taken a piece of the netting from that lace, from that. I'm gonna put the button on top, and that's it. So there's one. So I'm just gonna continue making those in the exact same way. And here's some of that netting. And I'll show you, here's a bigger piece of it. This is what's left. And it's just gorgeous. But if you look at this, what I'm using is some of this background piece here. But watch, I've got 2 fingers. It just, it's so old, it almost disintegrates in your hands. You just kind of pull and it just pulls apart, which is good and bad. But then I'm just taking a piece, not worrying about what size it is, just kind of wrapping it up a little bit, and then gluing sewing my button. I'm not even gluing this, just sewing the button directly on top. Let's see, I think I want each button, ooh, this is cool. I think I want each button to be different, but they're all very vintagey. That actually might be too big of a piece. So I'm gonna pull just a little bit of this off down here. If I need to, I can always come back to it. Got that little hint of blue on there. And I think this is cute. Very, very simple, Very easy to do. You could put anything here. You could cluster this with, you know, you could put more than one button. You could put 5 buttons if you wanted to. You could put a piece of rust here. You could put darn near anything. And actually you'll see what I'm gonna do with rust here in just a second on Mr. Grunge. So butterfly, sweet, simple. There's 2 down. So I won't bore you with sewing on all 4 of them, but I think you can get the idea here of where we're going with that one. When I'm at the end of this video, I'll come back and show you all 5 completely completed for all 4 versions. Okay, next up, let's see. Next, I'll show you what I'm going to do with, this is for Mr. Grunge. If you noticed on Mr. Grunge, the front of his cover there's this little leather tab. This is real leather it's from a furniture store where they package up their scraps. Perfect for things like this. And so I pulled this particular brown, this little scrap out of the mix, and the back, I had to be careful because, like, here's a piece left over. It had cut marks, you know, markings on the front. I don't know if that'll come off or not, but so some of it, oh yeah, I guess it does, it rubs. Anyway, this is what's left over. So again, Mr. Grunge is going to have 5 signatures as of right now. And what I'm going to do, and I need to go take these 4 pieces and do the same thing, but I've sewn around the edge all the way around, just a very, you know, a little seam. Then what I did was I poked a hole, in this particular one, I poked a hole in sort of the center and put let me back up. I took some rusty brads and some rusty washers, and I put a coat of glossy accents on them. That's to seal them, seal the rust in, so you still get that rust effect. A little bit of sheen that's on there I think is nice, and they're protected. So I've got 3 washers, and these are all dry. I did these night before last. 3 washers, 2 brads, 5 signatures, so I'll do like every other one. So there'll be a washer and then a brad and then a washer. You get the idea. And I'm just taking also a piece of wire that's been rusted, and it also has been coated. It's been coated with matte gel medium. So again, to get some protection on, you know, that rust. When I first started playing with this wire, I had rust dust all over me, and it doesn't anymore. And I just wrapped it around my fingers 3 times. And then what I'm gonna do is, after I sew around my edge, I'm gonna slip this in and then kind of, you know, play with the wire. The idea behind the wire, and in the other one I'm gonna do, which is rusty paper clips, is not mine in any way, shape, or form. If you look at Mountain Girl Studio, Angie Garcia, she has a video on making some clusters with, I think it was rusted paper clips, but I've also seen she's used wire, probably not in the same way, but similarly. And so this is just a version inspired by Angie's video. So be sure, as a matter, I'll link it below so you can go watch it. But anyway, then on this one, I'm going to hand sew the washer onto the flap. So it'll look kind of like that. And then this one looks, they'll all have that wire on the edge of the tab. And then this wire is, not only is there glue under here, but there's also some sewing right here. So it would be kind of hard to get it off, I hope. So that's the idea. Some sewing needs to be done there. So I'm gonna get the first part of the sewing done, and I'll be right back. Okay, sewing done. Now I'm going to take my wire, and I'm going to use art glitter glue here. And I got that all crooked, but that's okay. That's okay. I take my wire, gonna slip it in. the beginning and the end of the wire meet, and that's what I'm putting between the leather pieces here. Okay, I've got these sewn, and so not straight. I didn't cut strings. They're kind of ratty. I'll trim them up later. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. I might leave some of the strings on and take some of them off. It just kind of depends. But they're there. Okay, so you saw. Let me do a brad first, since I just have 2 brads, and I've already done one. This is a really thin leather, so it was not hard at all to come in with my crocodile and poke. Let me see if I can get these about the same spot and poke a hole. So that's what I did here. It's not dead center. I'm not measuring it. Actually, it's a little low, but it's pretty close to the same. And then I'm just taking this brad and I'm pushing it in. Okay, now you can see, if I can get them separated here because they have glossy accents on them, so they're sticking a little bit. But you can plainly see that the legs of this brad are way too long for what I'm doing. So I'm going to go in with my Tim Holtz scissors, which will cut metal, and I'm going to snip that off shy of the edge there. And then I'm going to snip it off so it fits on this side as well. And then when I affix this to the journal, this metal will be glued onto the paper as well. So there'll be plenty of, yeah, that's a little overkill on the string. There will be plenty of support for it to stay snug. There we go, that's better. It's got a little out of control there. And that's that one. Those are, close enough, close enough. Again, this is Mr. Grunge, so we're not trying to be perfect in any way, shape, or form. All right, on this one, now what I want to do is I want to take the washer and I want to sew it on here. So just make sure you keep this open and you don't sew. Any kind of sewing you do on these, make sure that you do not sew a little further in the 2 pieces together, except the very first, this edge where I've sewn the 2 pieces together to keep that wire in there. I'm sure you don't want to see me sew all of these on here, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'll get this one done and then I will do the other 2 off camera. Then when I get done with all of the tabs for all of the journals, I'll come back and show them all to you completed, and perhaps even on some of the pages. There we go. I like it. So that's what that's going to look like. And I could sew the other 2 sides. No, I think I'm going to leave it right like that. And I probably will put a dab of glue underneath that washer, just to make sure, Not that I think these threads will get snipped or anything, but just as a extra. The next set, I already did some pre-sewing because it's the same theory as the wire, except in this set, what I did was I used a rusty washer, rusty paper clip. That's the washer. This is the paper clip. And this can go up or down, and I just sewed my edge. And I've used, I just used the thread that was in there. It happens to be green. Now on this one, I've got 2 pieces of fabric. This is for Botanical, and these are both the pieces of fabric that are on the front of Botanical. And so again, tying it back into the journal. That's a little long. And it'll be, you know, a little bit vintagey here, because what I'm going to do on this one, very similar. So these are all, you know, other than Wild Child, which actually stuck to the paper over here. These are all going to be very, very similar to each other. All right, cool. I can come back to that here pretty soon. Done very similar, but hopefully look different enough, you know, that they each work with the journal. So nothing in the loop on this one, just a little bit of lace, the netting from some lace, and a vintage button, a baby vintage button. Leather on the base here, rusted wire that has been coated, rusted washers and or brads, again, that have been coated, some sewing on, some not. This is the rusted paper clip, again, has been coated with glossy accents. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plunk a little bit of color on these. And here, let's do a green one. And this is just a piece of sari. And I'm just, you know, kind of like with that lace, I'm just sort of scrunching it on. Again, you gotta be careful here. I'm just gonna plunk that on, which again is in part why I'm not real worried about the sewing. And then this is just a snippet of some muslin that was in a part of a rust bath. And I'm gonna put that on top. And this time I'm going to take a larger button. That particular one already has sewing on it. And I'm gonna put that on there right like that. And that will be, in each one of these, oh here, let me go ahead and do the gluing. Each one of these will be a different color. So let's start with our sari silk. And I'm not paying much attention to how it's on there. I do want to fold this over a little bit. And I'm not worried about the glue coming through the sari because the button's going to be back there and it's going to be hidden. So we'll do that. And then this is just a piece of muslin, literally a square, if you will, of muslin that was in a rust bath that I just ripped a piece off of. Just gonna drop that on there. And then this is a vintage button. And I'm gonna glue it on, but I am gonna also come in here and sew this on. Let's put it this way. About in the center. And that ought to be. And that's what I'm going to do to those. So I've got the green, I've got some blue. I have two blues. There's a gray blue, a blue, a purple, and a pink. So that's what those are gonna look like. I'm going to finish all of these up. Well, actually, before I go on, my glazing medium is dry. So I want to show you how I put the glossy accent. So I'm going to scoot all this up just a little bit. Come over here to my scrap paper here where these are. And I want this to be as flat as I can get it. It's, you know, it had a medium on it and it's paper, but they flatten back out pretty well. Notice I have not done any inking on these, and there is a reason for that. It's because the glossy accents is a liquid, and I didn't want the ink to run into the piece, although that would probably look cool. I'm going to put the glossy accents on first, walk away from this, let it dry overnight, and then I will, then I'll come back in and ink the edges. So I'm going to be very careful to start up here on my edge the fold, where the fold is, because I don't want this to go across the whole tab. I just want it on that front part of the tab. And I'm just sort of tapping around the edge as I go. And believe it or not, it'll stay. It won't run off, even though you're putting more on here. You're creating a dome. Now I'm going to fill in the center. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is look for any bubbles that I've got, because they will be noticeable once this dries. Now again, I keep losing things. I had a little pin right over here. And I do see a pretty big bubble there that I want to pop. And I don't know where to do with my pin. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I see a pretty good sized one right here. Yep, got it. And you can't always see them very well, at least I can't. Other people probably do a better job. But if you just poke where the bubble is, you should be able to pop it. And then that whole of that space will fill back up. It's not perfect, and there'll still be some. Actually, I want to put this here. There'll still be some that you miss, probably. That's okay, it's no big deal. I've got the tabs done, and they're, these are still drying, but one of them worked and one of them didn't. Here's one that I just did. You can kind of see, yeah, there's a bubble in there, but it's okay. It gives character. So I really like that. This was one that I had already done previously. This is the one that didn't work. The flowers, it's still a little cloudy because it's still drying, but the flowers blended in with the background too much. So I won't use that. But like I said, I had created 4, needed 3, and it was totally an experiment. So I fully expected at least one of them not to work. But what I want to do now, I'm going to show you all of the tabs. That's this set. And then what I did was just put the first tab on the first page. I don't have all of my signatures completely put together for all 4 journals, but I kind of do have that first page. And so I want to show you for each of the journals the set that I've created, so that you can kind of begin to see how they play together. So if this is the first page of the signature, and here's the tab on this one. And so I put this as a blue tab. I put it on a page where it's got some blue in it, mostly purple, of course, but some blue. But that'll be the first page that you open up to. Then if you recall, I think it was my last video, this is the CDV album page that I did. I still have some work to do to this, but this is the front, it's done. So that'll go in there with that. This is the tag. This is one of the first videos I did. This was the mixed media tag that I created for this journal. And so you can begin to see. And then I did not post a video, but I created envelopes for each of them out of player piano paper roll. And so this is, you can see, this is the player piano paper roll here on the outside. I scratched it up and then colored it. So some of the colors soaked into the scratches, which I love. And then this is the envelope. I used some of this same fabric on the inside of the envelope that I used on the inside of the journal. Flower on there. And so that envelope, again, this isn't done. I have some work to do to it. But you can begin to see how the pieces that I'm creating 4 of in 4 different ways, and the different pieces that I'm creating are beginning to work with the journals. At least hopefully you can see that. Especially some pieces more than others. Now, from here, I'm going to move into focusing attention on one journal at a time instead of pieces. I'll make a lot more pieces. There's more tags, there's pockets. I might make more envelopes, that kind of thing. I think from here on out, that will be a whole lot easier. So that's that one. Here's butterfly. I've got a bunch of stuff shoved in here, scraps and leftovers and things, but I did the same thing. these are all my tabs. Here's the first signature, and this is how this will look. When you open the journal, this is the first thing you'll see. And here's my tab here. This is the one that is just fabric. And I've got it connected to, this top piece has been waxed. You can see that it's see-through, so it's been waxed. Got some vintage lace on there, and so that's that signature. Oh, I need to double check it, but it's probably pretty close to being ready to go. Then here are the pieces that I've created for this journal. This is the CDV album page, and it'll have a tag that's going to be a pocket, and it'll have a tag that slips into top or side, probably top. Here's the envelope that I created, and I put some vintage beeswax and embossing, it's called baked texture, on the butterfly here, and used some of the same pieces, or similar pieces, if you will, from the same kit from 49th and Market. And then here's the mixed media tag that I'd created for this journal. And so again, I think you can begin to see how the pieces are playing together in the sandbox. That's that one. And I'm gonna wait to put tabs on until a little later, just because I'm not 100% sure if I've got all my signatures set. I knew that the first one, I felt pretty good about that first one being good, but I don't know about the rest of them, so we'll see. This is Botanical, and let me get these out of the way. Same thing. Now Botanical, what I did, here are the different colored tabs. So each one's a slightly different color, and you can see some of these colors in some of the pages. This is the first signature of this one, and I do have all of the first signatures done on these, but what I did for these is I added vintage lace to the edge of each one. So there's not going to be a tab on this first page, but what I did is I went further into the signature to another page and added the tab there. So if this is the first signature, this tab is just further in, just done a little different way. And this is the one with the, what is that? Paper clip. This is the one with the paper clip on it. And then when you open it, here's the back side. I just left it plain. But works on that. And I'll go through each signature and figure out which page the tab would work best on. And then the pieces and components that go with this. Here's the album page. Here is the mixed media tag, and here's the envelope that I made to go with that one. And it was done on a scrapbook paper. This is sort of the outside of the scrapbook paper, if you will. I used it, made it the inside of the envelope, and you can see the lines from the player piano roll here. Same thing, I scratched it up. I kind of did that on all of them, scratched it up first with some sandpaper, and that gave me that worn look. So these are the pieces that go with this journal. So you can begin to see how that plays out. Okay, next up, again, same thing. I want to make sure, I want to be 100% positive about all my signatures before I put the tabs all on, but they're ready to go. And the fourth one, Mr. Grunge, same thing. I've got this first signature. Here are all of the tabs ready to go. And I went ahead and put it on the first page of the first signature. And so that's the first tab there. I really like that one. Like the way it worked out, and it's just the back, you just see the leather piece. And I may, on some of these, you know, I might do some more here, maybe put a label on there. I don't know, we'll see. But you can see how that's gonna play out. And then here's the album page for this journal and the mixed media tag for this journal and the envelope for this journal, which I kept really simple, very rust in color. Same thing, you can see the scratches, which really turned out well. And I just made this into a rust color to give it that rust look. So yeah, hopefully they're beginning to, their characters are beginning to shine through, and you can see the different personalities of the different journals. And I will continue to record as I go through, and like I said, I'm gonna, from here I'm gonna say, okay, this week I'm gonna work on butterfly, and I'll work on butterfly for a whole week, and that will help me focus and zero in on what I'm making, instead of trying to make 4 very, very different things of the same type of piece, if that makes sense. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. And more to come on celebrating our differences. I'll be back. Bye-bye.